Hey guys, welcome to Conversations. I'm John Thomas. This is my friend Michael French with Ministries, and we are going to be talking today about the importance of ministry training, theological training, seminary in the life of Christians. Yeah. And I want to say that kind of in a specific way because we have this mindset sometimes that that seminary training, ministry training, that's really for people that are called into ministry. And I'll put quotes around ministry because my understanding is if you're a believer, you're in ministry.
Right.
But we almost have this like, okay, that's for those people that they're going to make a career out of this.
Yeah, that full-time vocational stuff.
But the reality is without it, our lives as Christians actually lack something. And so we've been talking a little bit just about how important that is. And so I thought, let's just go there and explore that for a little bit.
Sounds good. Yeah. And I think it's such a huge topic because we haven't really seen successful ministry training outside of the vocational arena that actually allows a person to easily integrate into a full-time day job.
Right.
It almost seems to make it harder for people.
It does. And I've got friends that I've watched what happened. They came out of ministry schools. And I mean, we had an intern program at Streams School of Ministry, came out of that in other ministry schools that after they came out, it would take them sometimes 2 to 4 years before they were able to kind of reintegrate back into normal church life, normal work life. And a lot of it was kind of this illusion of what it means to be successful or to be anointed, this picture of being in ministry.
Yeah, and you don't want to be critical of those things. They've got such a valuable, they're so powerful in the way they've impacted some people's lives and gotten them ready to accept experiencing what God was doing in their life. But at the same time, there's got to be a mechanism by which we can both equip people for practical mainline life,
right,
and flowing in their gifts and calls in that environment.
Yeah, in that environment. Well, and we've done, I mean, just as a church, there's been a lot of focus on impacting culture, impacting society. We talk about the 7 mountains or the 7 spheres or whatever language we want to use, and the need to really disciple people in those spheres. And I think that if we go back to basic Christianity, the concept of full-time ministry really it's a newer thing. It was, I mean, there's always been those that have been given to that, but that is kind of as a goal for Christians. That was a rare call rather than a goal for Christians for centuries in the church. And because that's that desire, we've created a mentality, and I know this because this was my mentality for a number of years. We created this mentality that when I get really successful as a Christian, then God will finally love me enough to let me be in full-time vocational ministry.
Yeah. And in all of our training, because of that, all of our training has gotten centered around full-time vocational ministry.
Right.
And here's, I think, the challenge. If our training is centered around full-time vocational ministry, the vast majority of the people who go through that training that don't end up in full-time vocational ministry didn't get what they needed.
Yes.
But if our training is centered about life ministry, then those who do enter into full-time vocational ministry will also have what they need.
Yeah.
To relate to the people they're ministering to and with.
Yeah. So I do a lot of stuff in Sweden.
Can you tell? Look at that.
I love Sweden. I was just in Sweden. I got this shirt in Sweden and I loved it. So I figured I'd wear it. But in Sweden, it's pretty common for believers as they're going up, they get done with school and they will go to seminary for a year or two, Bible school for a year or two, and then go back and maybe go through college or go through university or go through whatever training before they go into their jobs. And it's almost a common thing. It's not everybody, but a large percentage. I just kept on talking to different ones, and like, well, yeah, that's pretty common. I'm like, that's really cool. But what happens is you have in the church the people that are just that's not the right word, but the people that are in the church that are not being paid to be on staff. The level of maturity and the level of activity within the church is different in a lot of these churches, and there's a maturity that's there, and some of them end up in business. They're running businesses, or they're working for businesses. So they're making coffee at a coffee shop, but they have this foundation that now informs their life with God and informs the way they do family. It gives them a grid to fit what they're learning in church in, and their lives are different.
Yeah, when I think about this whole picture, we're not equipping people in church for those things. We've become church. I mean, I hate to say it, but for the most part, we've become church where people go hear a good message and then go about their week. We're not equipping them for ministry life in seminary or Bible school. And in our ministry training schools, we're almost ill-equipping them at times. Now, again, I don't want to be critical of that because it has a value.
Yeah.
But the transition time for them is so long. And we end up with folks who come out thinking they have the answers and having to learning how to integrate those answers into real life, that we don't have a mechanism that prepares people to be good members of the church. It sounds like that helps with that you're talking about in Sweden.
Yeah.
But here in the U.S. and much of the world, I don't think we have a mechanism that even helps with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, to me, that says to us, God's ready to do something new.
Yeah. I think that that's very true. There's a need for a focus on that. And I've just trying to figure out the right way of saying this. In thinking about that, one of the things that I think of is like, okay, so I know that this is something that's needed. I don't see it. What can I do in my life so that I am filling that need in my life, whether or not anybody else provides a place for me to get it filled?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I can look back at the time that I've spent in the last 20 years and how I've focused on equipping. I've never been to a seminary, never been to a Bible school. I've worked full time, clear up until the time where I was asked to come on staff at Streams, as a financial advisor. But while I was doing that, I was delivering pizza, and I was going through I guess it was a Bible school. It was a correspondence Bible school at the time. So I'm listening to tapes, I'm taking my notes, I'm writing my essays, and I'm answering these questions. And that's what I'm doing after I get off of work. And that's what I'm doing to get ready. And then in church, I'm working, I'm doing, I'm serving. I interned with the pastor that was over evangelism and assimilation, and I learned how to run outreaches, and I learned how to call people that were visiting the church for the first time, how to lead people to the Lord, how to pray for people that were sick and see them healed, and all these dynamics. And I at the time, it's not like I was waiting at that moment. It was not like I was waiting until I was finally going to get into full-time ministry. I just was so in love with God. I wanted to serve him. And I knew how much benefit I'd received. And I wanted to give it away to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Like, how can I help? So what are some of those things? Well, let me back up, because you almost, if you talk about the what before you talk about the why, you almost get a thing. Why is it actually important for the average person that is going to be working a 9-to-5 job or starting a business that's much more than 9 to 5? Why is it important for them to press into developing ministry skills and theological training?
I think it's interesting we're having that conversation because I'm much like you. I was a lawyer and I was teaching Bible studies and going to conferences to learn what I learned. Didn't go to seminary or Bible school either,
Right.
in that preparation. And so for me, and I think this is the heart of why it's important. In that environment, the two of us, yes, we rose into more or less full-time ministry, but the truth is both of us were doing ministry as part of our life
Right.
long before we were ever in full-time ministry
Yeah.
in any capacity. And I think that's the heart of why it's important, because if I read the Word of God correct, and I think I do on this point, I believe it says we're all to be witnesses.
Yeah.
And if I don't understand how to give away what I have, I can't be a witness to anything. My background's an attorney. So a witness is one who is put on a stand before a courtroom where a decision is going to have to be made to describe and tell about what they saw or experienced.
Yeah.
If I have nothing I've seen or nothing I've experienced to convey, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm very grateful for the testimony that says, I accepted Jesus as my Savior, and I did it at a young age, and I've just been a Christian ever since. But if I don't have something on the previous side or the after side of that to convey the experience of what I have walked through, either how God is moving in my life or how He got what He got me out of, I'm not a really effective witness. There's nothing wrong with my witness. It's just not as effective.
Right.
And I think that's what we're talking about. Being equipped to utilize your faith in an everyday setting is the heart of being prepared to be in full-time ministry if you are called to that.
Right. I mean, I remember when I was getting ready to leave the bank that I was working at, we were moving to New Hampshire. I was going to go work for another bank up there. But I'm getting ready to leave and talking to the different employees. I had two different employees. Now, I wasn't the boss. I was just one of the team. Two different employees that said to me, well, since you're leaving, I guess we're going to have to go to church since we're losing our pastor.
Yeah.
Because I'd never called myself pastor. I'd never said that to them, but that was their comment. They were being pastored.
Yeah.
And I wasn't being paid to do that. I wasn't trying to develop a marketplace ministry. I was just loving the people that were in front of me. And I studied scripture because I cared about God and I really wanted to know Him so that I could talk about Him better. And just developing that heart of just living out our lives every day. You begin to live out the Christian life. You start to realize your lack, and you're going to have to find some place to fill that lack. Bible study, understanding this book or that conference or this thing. I mean, I came into a meeting and I remember it was, first time I saw John Paul minister. I didn't really know who he was. I mean, I knew the name and he was going to be a guest speaker. He starts prophesying over people. I didn't even have a grid for it, but I could see they were being strengthened. They were better. Mm-hmm. Now, I was watching the impact it was having on their spirits. Now, I didn't have language for it at that time, but I just knew, like, this is really good. This is really powerful. This is God, and I want to help people like that. And John Paul's like, well, I'm doing this course on Art of Hearing God. A couple months. I'm like, I got to go to that course. How much is it? $350. Like, yeah. I'm delivering pizza for a living. $350.
I remember that cost.
Oh man. But I found a way.
Yeah.
I found a way. And then, I needed to learn about dream interpretation because I kept on having people come up to me and says, hey, do you understand what this? I had this dream. Do you know what this means? And like, why are you asking me? I don't have a sign that says dream interpreter. I interpret dreams. What do your dreams mean? But they would just come up and ask. And so I'm like, okay, I've got to learn about this. I've got to grow on this. And so, me and Donna, we took our vacation time and we drove from Phoenix, Arizona to Atlanta, Georgia, which, for those of you that don't live in the United States, that was about a 3-day drive with breaks to sleep. I think it would have been something like 28 or 29 hours straight driving time.
Yep.
So, but that's what we needed to do because that's where we could learn. That's where we could grow. That was the need. What am I doing? And this is the question I want you to ask yourself. What am I doing to sow into my effectiveness as a follower of Jesus? And not what are you doing to prepare for your eventual, I'm going to be a prophet, or I'm going to be a pastor, I'm going to be a teacher. What are you doing to sow into your effectiveness as a follower of Jesus Christ right now, where you're at?
And that question we haven't asked ourselves very much. Because either, we're not interested in ministry at all, or it's got to be full time.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for finding a balance between a theological training and a practical ministry training and a real life application.
Right.
And I really believe there's a lot of things in the church right now that are taking place that are shifting us. And I just want to encourage you, if you're watching this too, you've probably been in places that were shifting you to be into a position where there's not a pattern, there's not a model for what things are looking like right now. And our concept of training and our concept of preparation for ministry is in that spot.
Yeah.
We can't look at seminary as a model. We can't look at the internships and mentorship and Bible ministry training schools as a model. Again, anytime you have a model, it doesn't mean it's bad just because you move to something new.
Right.
But I do believe we're in a season when God is wanting to stir something new that brings pieces from all of these areas together to equip the body in a new way.
Yeah.
That will make better pastors, but it's also going to make better factory workers and plumbers and electricians and moms and social club members and, accountants and whatever else they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the vision statement of the church where I was discipled. We turned ordinary people into extraordinary followers of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And so how?
Yeah.
But that's the thing, because it's not, I mean, Jesus didn't go and find the religious leaders or the political leaders or the educational leaders. He took, he took not a Levite. Thinking of Levi, he wasn't a Levite. He took a tax collector, right? He took some fishermen. He took a terrorist. That's what the zealot was.
Yeah, and some prostitutes. That he spent time with.
Gathered them together, but he trained them. He taught them kingdom principles, and he had them do ministry. And he talked to them about that ministry and mentored them, and then told them, now this is what's really going on as you're doing that. This is what's happening in the spirit realm. This is what's happening in life. And that marrying those things. And
look at how it worked, John. He took that core group that we think of as the 12 and then the expanded group, and he began to train the core group to be able to train the expanded group.
Yeah.
And if you look at how they did when they first got sent out, look at the disciples as they first go out, and he sends them out and they come back, and their statement is, can we call fire down on these folks? I mean, can we just wipe them out? Because they don't listen.
Yeah.
Okay. They weren't ready, and he still sent them out because he knew they were going to learn as much from the practical process of trying something as they were, and they were really going to be able to apply it better trying it than they were just hearing about it.
Yeah.
But then he did something really cool that we don't really, first of all, we don't send people out till we think we've got them completely ready.
Yeah.
But secondly, we don't do the next thing he did, and that was he looked at him and he said, hold on. You missed it here. He didn't condemn them. He said, let's rethink this and what you're thinking about this. And to emphasize that, take these other guys and go try again.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? he didn't test them to see if they had it right now. He didn't even test them to see if their attitude was right now. He said, now, when you start teaching somebody else, you're going to realize why the attitude you had was wrong.
Yeah,
and there's something about thinking through things in that way that says, I'm not just a learner, but I'm also a teacher. Everywhere I'm at.
Everywhere I'm at.
In every situation I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't have a process that emphasizes that. And I understand that's scary. I get that. Listen, I would love to see some new means of training come into place in the church today. And to say that concept of send people out before they're ready and let them teach people before they're ready is a scary thought.
It is.
And I understand we have to be wise with it. And Jesus was wise. But he did it.
But scary doesn't mean wrong.
Right.
And that's, we've really got to get that.
Yeah.
So, we don't want to just leave with this, the bunch of questions of, okay, here's the problem, right? There's things that we can do. And we talked about, you take ownership for your discipleship and for your growth, and you're going to grow. Find those books, find those communities where you're doing ministry together. Even if you're not ready, you're not going to be ready. If you wait till you're ready, you'll never do anything, right? Mm-hmm. And press into that and look for those opportunities to grow and make sure that you're marrying theological depth with practical ministry, and that is informing the way that you live wherever you are at. Because if you do that, you're going to grow, and you're going to be the ones that people are coming to say, hey, where did you get that? Like the disciples, they looked at Peter and John and said, well, and they're uneducated, but man, they've been with Jesus. Yeah. And that's what we want.
And, and they were in community.
Yeah.
They learned to draw on one another, and Jesus never sent them out alone. And we've got such a Lone Ranger mentality today. I'm going to go through seminary. I'm going to go through ministry training, and I'm going to have all the answers.
Right.
And I'm going to come home and fix my pastor and fix my Sunday school teacher and fix the evangelist and get revival going in my community. And I'll be able to do it because I've been to this school or this training. When in reality, Jesus did all of that through community.
It's all community. Sent them out 2 by 2. He didn't send them out alone.
Yep.
And they always came back to the group, and there was always that interaction because Jesus came to establish family.
Yep. And you're right. There was always, he sent them out as community, he sent them out 2 by 2, and there was always feedback.
Yeah.
There was always a time of question and answer and give and take. And what did we learn from this?
Yeah. Practical
training with a sound theological, systematic understanding of why did they do what they did. And something we don't do as well is teach people why they believe what they believe. We've got a whole generation of folks who, if we're not careful, are going to raise up believing something if they believe anything.
Right.
Because unfortunately, that's
the
issue.
question mark. Yeah.
But we have a generation that's actually out there now that believes what they believe because somebody told them and has no idea why they believe it.
Yeah.
And that has to be a part of this process of digging into and finding a way to have that conversation that challenges why do you believe this to the point that we can accept or recognize it's not just because the pastor said it. It's because it's in me and I know why it's real.
Yeah. So, and this is why it's important for every believer, because we've all got to be in that place, because that's a firm foundation. Yep. Well, Michael, look forward to exploring this as we move forward, because it's a need in the church, and we can be the answer, right? You can be the answer for yourself, and you can be the answer for the people around you. Don't wait for somebody else to lead you. Lead those that God's given you influence over, because you'll find yourself going to where you're supposed to go. So
it's good.
Thanks so much.
Amen.
Appreciate you being here.
Good to be here.